Gilneas has been in this weird state since Cataclysm. I'd wager even Blizzard right now doesn't know who controls what part of the former Human Kingdom and what is the actual situation down there. However, one thing is certain, the Gilneans that turned into the Worgen are still refugees. Genn Greymane is still not ruling from his palace and they long to return to their homeland. Well, finally, after all this time, this might be happening and even happening as soon as Dragonfight, as we got new questline info, new implications for the Forsaken returning Gilneas back, as well as some general hints at this happening quite soon. So what is all this new info, and is Gilneas actually going to be returned back to the Alliance? Are you looking for cheap software like Windows 11 for the best price on the market? Well, Royal City Keys is your best option. You can also find a bunch of games at amazing prices such as Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and best of all, if you use my code DORON, you will get an additional 10% off. So if you want to support the channel and get something for yourself, check out my link in the description below or the QR code on the screen. I'm not going to give you a full-on lore lesson on this, but Gilneas is one of the most important human kingdoms that we have. Fun fact, Kul Tiras is literally just a Gilnean expedition. Well, Gilneas itself has been led to this weird state of isolation purposefully. They helped out a bit in the original alliance with the rest of the human kingdoms, but when Genn Greymane realized that they will end up giving more than they actually receive from this alliance, he decided to just erect a massive wall and to just set up a completely isolated kingdom from the rest of the world. Well, this worked for a time, but then the Worgen curse came in and just wreaked havoc across the isolated Gilneas, and to top it all off, the Shattering and Cataclysm broke this massive wall. Then Garrosh and Sylvanas just swooped in, mainly Sylvanas, and decided that this is now free real estate and that they could also turn this into a really cool new port for the Horde. So she did all sorts of unspeakable things, such as destroying a large portion of the population, using really strong plague, and just destroy the kingdom overall. Since Genn abandoned the alliance himself purposefully, Varian was really reluctant to accept him back in, but ultimately, he did, and the Gilneans found refuge with the Night Elves as well as in Stormwind, and since then they have been helping the Alliance, but mainly they just wanted to return back to their home. Now, the actual fate of Gilneas has never been certain. We know that Forsaken controlled some parts, Alliance retook some parts, but what is 100% certain is that the Gilneans don't control it, and obviously they couldn't return back home and to rebuild their kingdom. Genn's main focus has been on destroying Sylvanas, even going as far as starting a new faction conflict because of it back in Legion. But recently, as Sylvanas was defeated and sentenced and the entire team has been about renewal, it might finally be time after well over a decade that the Worgen will be returning back to their old and destroyed homeland, and we may just be getting a brand new big alliance city. So the info is not that new. You probably already know what happened in 9.2.5. It has been a few weeks, and the recent questlines that have been happening. The Forsaken managed to reclaim Undercity, and with the help of Maldraxxus, the plague itself was cleared, and then they sort of accepted Calia Menethil as a part of the new leadership of the undead, known as the Desolate Council. Now, here's the thing. Calia is not only different, as in she's a Lightbound undead and not a Forsaken, but she realistically has much closer ties to the Alliance than she does to the Horde, and she might just be a bridge between the two factions finally uniting, as after all, we got cross-faction grouping in the actual game, so it is kind of official. Now, why I say she may be a bridge is because she's literally going to serve some Alliance interests in a way. After you finish up the new questline in 9.2.5 and the Forsaken situation is sort of settled, she sends a letter directly to Greymane to inform him of what happened and to inform him about the future of Gilneas, and this is what she says. King Greymane, the ally you sent to aid us was most effective, and in return for your patience, I offer welcome news. With the formation of the new Desolate Council, one of the first topics I propose is the withdrawal of Forsaken troops from the Kingdom of Gilneas. In time, I hope that we may come to a closer agreement and see both lands into a brighter future. Warm regards, Calia Menethil. Now, guys, if this is not the most concrete information for Gilneans returning that we received since pretty much forever, then I really don't know what is. Now, while people have been saying that this thing might be happening as soon as the Dragonfight, I feel like this might not really be the case. One of the reasons is that Blizzard said that they want to keep most of the focus of the new expansion on the Dragon Isles themselves, and I'd say Gilneas would definitely require an entire patch. It is a pretty big kingdom. However, what we might see throughout the Dragonfight is them setting up the ground for Gilneas to return in the expansion that is to come after. After all, we could get Gilneas Restoration as well as Undercity, so the focus of the next expansion could be on the entirety of the northern eastern kingdoms. Why I think this is the case is because if you go to the actual official World of Warcraft website and check out the playable races, the Worgen, you will see that their home city says Gilneas, and them saying the Worgen seek to one day reclaim their beloved city. So really, when you think about it, it is only a matter of time before this happens. Now, on the other hand, I think we should not immediately start preparing to just march into brand new Gilneas, as after all, Caelia Manatiel is not a new Sylvanas. She isn't even a leader. She's only a part of the council, and if you follow the quest line, she was quite reluctantly accepted by the Forsaken as one of their leaders. In fact, some wanted nothing to do with her, even wanted to exile her. She doesn't really have the authority or the absolute power to just enforce a complete withdrawal of troops from an entire zone. However, as she said in the letter, she plans to propose the solution, and Blizzard obviously here hints at this taking some time, as she says, in time, I hope we may come to a closer agreement and see both lands into a brighter future. However, I gotta say, I definitely see this happening. Night Elves are getting their own restoration, more than likely in the Dragonfight on the Dragon Isles, and it is finally time for the Worgen to get their own, as they have been refugees pretty much since Cataclysm. Additionally, Horde and Alliance relations have really never been better. Finally, there are no more malicious factors, no more Burning Legion, power-hungry Garrosh, jailer-controlled Sylvanas getting the factions into conflict, or at least that is what they think. Who knows, maybe something is going to happen with Aurelion. But if we discount the wild speculations, Blizzard literally introduced cross-faction grouping, which means they kind of officially confirmed that the factions united after all these endless wars, because Horde and Alliance did unite like 10 different times in the past and then just plunged into conflict again. But at the moment, we can actually play together in the actual game for the first time ever, so I'd say this is a pretty big step. Now, if you look at this from a geopolitical perspective, the Forsaken returning Gilneas to the Worgen would actually be a really smart move. Let's be real, the Undead just cleared out the plague and restored their seat of power, but it is essentially just gone. They were devastated in the most recent conflict. They lost a lot of their numbers, they lost their leadership, their entire homeland was completely devastated, and as we know, the Alliance actually won the war. The Forsaken right now are really in no position to just wage a new war, nor do they really have the resources to do so, especially with the Alliance that is the biggest faction. With the new questline, it seems like they just kind of want to return back to normal, get back to Restful Glades, Undercity, get new leaders, and not really expand, just make things normal again. When you think about it, realistically, the Undead never really wanted to control Gilneas in the first place. That has entirely been orchestrated by Garrosh and Sylvanas and their megalomaniac plans. Although, let's be real, we never really knew what the Forsaken ever wanted, as pretty much the entire shtick has been that they have no purpose. Previously, it was destroying the Lich King, then following whatever Sylvanas was up to, and now, just like, who knows really what their actual goal is. We learned more about their state in the Shadowlands, and they may be accepted more by the opposite faction. However, they certainly lost a lot, and if they returned Gilneas, the Alliance could in return just leave them alone, and they could totally withdraw, allowing them a chance to rebuild Undercity and the entirety of the zone surrounding Undercity. Realistically, they also don't really have anything to gain from controlling Gilneas, although I guess in the case of a future war, them having an entire Alliance kingdom right to their border would definitely not be a really good thing. However, I gotta say, I'm excited to see what they come up with, and I would really love to see a new Gilneas, as even the original zone was designed brilliantly, but with the new and the updated assets, this could turn out to be an excellent future addition to World of Warcraft. Thank you for watching. Check out the Necromancers, the newest pack to be added by clicking on the screen, and check out the Academy for videos on real-world history. See you next time.